I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this, honestly. My name's Mark, and I've been married to Lisa for about 8 years now. We seemed fine, or at least I thought we did. No major fights, no obvious signs she was cheating, at least, not until recently. It's funny how quiet things can get right before everything explodes. The last few months, Lisa's been acting distant, more irritable, snapping at me over little things like I was some kind of inconvenience. I chalked it up to stress, work life, you name it. But deep down, I started feeling like I was missing something, like she was hiding something under her perfectly curated smile. Her behavior was off, but I didn't have concrete proof, just little things. She started wearing different clothes more often, more revealing, like she was trying to get attention elsewhere. She'd come home late without explanation, and when I'd ask where she'd been, she'd brush it off, call me paranoid, or accuse me of overthinking. It was always some excuse. I was with my friends, or I had to work late, even though I'd seen her messaging someone on her phone at odd hours. I wasn't stupid. I knew something was wrong, something she refused to admit. Then one day I came home early from work. The plan was to surprise her with dinner, nothing fancy, just a quiet night in. I was excited to see her, to reconnect after a weird couple of weeks. When I pulled into the driveway, I noticed the garage door was already up, which was odd because she usually told me when she was coming home early. Something felt off. I parked the car and quietly slipped inside, trying not to make a sound. That's when I saw her. She was in the living room, and she wasn't alone. Or rather, he wasn't alone. Standing in front of her, wearing my bathrobe, was a guy I didn't know. The guy was tall, broad-shouldered, with a scruffy beard, and was looking at her with this stupid grin on his face. I froze. My heart started pounding so loud I thought she'd hear it. She looked up, saw me standing there, and her face just froze. The guy, Todd, whatever his name was, looked like he'd seen a ghost. I couldn't believe my eyes. How the hell did she think she could hide this? I couldn't even speak at first. I was in pure shock. I saw them right there in my house, in my life, and she was acting like this was nothing. Like she had the right to do whatever she wanted. Her eyes widened as she saw me, and she quickly tried to cover herself, shrieking, "Mark, I can explain." But what was there to explain? I already knew. I saw the betrayal plain as day. The guy looked guilty, but she had that bitchy smirk on her face, like she thought she was untouchable. I stood there speechless, feeling like I was about to vomit. It was a mixture of anger, hurt, and disbelief all at once. I couldn't even process what I was feeling right away. I just stared, waiting for her to say something, anything. Instead, she looked at me and lied. Of course she lied, typical Lisa. "It's not what you think," she snapped, crossing her arms, trying to act like she wasn't just caught with her pants down in my house, wearing my bathrobe like some kind of trophy. I couldn't take it. The betrayal hit me harder than I thought possible. That was the moment I realized she'd been lying to me for months, maybe longer. I didn't even know who she was anymore. I knew I had to do something, anything, because things couldn't just stay like this. I never imagined my life would turn into something out of a bad soap opera, but here we were. And honestly, I was so angry, I felt like I could burn the whole damn house down. After that night, everything changed. I couldn't sleep. My mind kept circling around what I saw, what she said, and that damn guy in my house wearing my bathrobe. I kept replaying it over and over, trying to figure out what it meant, what I missed, how I missed the signs. She had lied so smoothly, so convincingly, I almost second-guessed myself. But I knew what I saw. I couldn't unsee it. And that made me feel like I was going crazy. The next day, I didn't even bother getting out of bed until late morning. My stomach was in knots. I felt betrayed, humiliated, like I'd been played for a fool. I kept thinking about how she'd turned into this bitchy, manipulative version of herself, snapping, lying, pretending everything was fine. I wondered how long she'd been cheating on me, with how many guys, and how she could have kept up the act for so long without me catching on. I decided I couldn't just confront her in some emotional, tearful mess. No, I needed a plan. I needed to know exactly what I was dealing with. So I started digging. I checked her phone, her social media, her email, anything I could get my hands on. It was like stepping into enemy territory. I found messages, subtle hints at her affair with Todd, and some explicit texts that made my blood boil. She was lying about everything, about where she'd been, who she was with, even about her feelings for me. She said she loved me, but her actions proved otherwise. That afternoon, I decided I'd had enough. I called her into the living room, asked her to sit down. She looked angry, defiant, even like she was expecting some kind of fight. I told her what I knew, showed her the texts. Her face twisted into this sneer and she started spitting out excuses. "You're paranoid," she said. "You're overreacting. Todd is just a friend helping us with the new dining table. I don't know what you're talking about." I couldn't believe her audacity. She always loved to lie and twist things, make herself the victim. I looked her in the eye and told her that I wasn't stupid, that I knew she was cheating, that I knew about Todd. I told her I'd had enough, that I was sick of her lies and manipulations. Her response: she looked at me like I was the crazy one. "You're overreacting, Mark. Just because I talk to someone doesn't mean I'm screwing him. Maybe you're just insecure." Insecure? I was furious. That's when I realized how much she hated being called out, how she always played the victim. The emotional roller coaster kept going. I felt hurt, then angry, then just numb. I wanted to break something, to scream at her, but I held back. I knew I had to keep my cool if I wanted to get any real answers. I looked at her, saw her smirk again, and knew she was lying, that she'd been lying for months, probably longer. The betrayal cut so deep it felt like my chest was splitting open. I kept asking myself how. I missed it, how she managed to hide it so well. That night I couldn't sleep. I stayed up staring at the ceiling, trembling with rage and heartbreak. I felt like a fool for trusting her so blindly. But I also knew I couldn't just roll over and accept this. I had to decide what to do next. Confrontation was done. I'd proven she was lying, cheating, and selfish. Now I had to figure out if I was going to fight for this marriage or cut my losses and walk away. I was exhausted, emotionally drained, but I knew one thing for sure: my life was never going to be the same again. The days that followed were a blur of anger, pain, and a strange sense of clarity. I couldn't focus on anything else. Every time I saw her, Lisa, she'd try to act normal, but I saw through her. That bitchy smirk, the way she'd avoid eye contact, the little lies she kept trying to spin. It was obvious she thought I was stupid, that I wouldn't find out everything. Well, she was dead wrong. I dug deep enough to know her game, and I wasn't about to let her keep running it. I started making plans. I wasn't going to let her manipulate me anymore. I decided I'd catch her in her own lies if I had to follow her, check her phone, even go through her emails. My instinct was telling me she was hiding more than just Todd. Maybe she'd been cheating for months, maybe longer. Whatever the case, I had to be smart. I couldn't just blow up without knowing what I was dealing with. But I also knew I couldn't keep living in this limbo, feeling like I was losing my mind every time she threw a fit or lied her way out of the truth. One afternoon, I decided to stake out her phone. I knew she'd be suspicious if I just asked outright, so I waited until she left the house for some shopping or whatever excuse she'd come up with this time. When she was gone, I snuck into her closet. She kept her phone on a shelf, hidden behind some scarves. I grabbed it, took it to the garage, and started digging through her messages. I found receipts, pictures, and more texts that confirmed she'd been sneaking around with Todd, even meeting him behind my back multiple times. The worst part, she told me she was busy with work or hanging out with her friends. Lies layered upon lies. I felt sick. My stomach twisted as I scrolled through the messages, the flirtatious comments, the explicit stuff. It was all there. I realized I'd been blind for so long, so naive. I used to think she loved me, that our life was solid. Guess I was dead wrong. I'd been a fool to trust her this much. And what really hurt was knowing she'd played me like a damn fool, all while she was sneaking around, sneering at me behind my back. That night I confronted her again, this time face to face. I told her I knew everything, that I'd seen the messages myself. She looked furious, and her reply was a typical snarky, dismissive tone. "You're overreacting, Mark. You're just jealous because I'm more attractive than anyone you've ever dated." I couldn't believe how she could be so callous. I told her I was done with her excuses, that I wasn't going to sit around and get lied to anymore. Her reaction: she threw a fit, started crying fake tears, and then shifted into the victim mode. "You're controlling," she spat. "You don't trust me. Maybe you're the one cheating or doing something stupid." That was the moment I finally saw her for what she was, a manipulative, selfish cheat who thought she could get away with anything. I was seething. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I'd burst. I wanted to shake her, to scream at her, but I kept my cool. I told her if she wanted to keep lying, that was her choice. But I wasn't going to be part of her game anymore. I decided I'd had enough of this emotional roller coaster. I needed space, clarity. I went to stay at a friend's house for a few days. I needed to think about what I really wanted, whether to fight for this marriage or walk away. Honestly, I was leaning heavily toward leaving. Her lies, her cheating, her manipulations, they'd broken whatever respect I had left. I'd loved her once, but now I was just furious. I felt betrayed at a level I'd never experienced before. It was like my whole world had been turned upside down, and I didn't know how to put the pieces back together. In the quiet moments alone, I kept asking myself if there was any way to salvage this, if she'd really change or if she'd just keep lying and cheating behind my back. But deep down, I knew the answer. The trust was gone for good. And if I was honest with myself, I was starting to realize that I deserved better than this. Someone who'd respect me, who wouldn't cheat and lie. Still, part of me felt lost, like I'd just lost the person I thought I knew, the person I had believed I was building a life with. It was a bitter pill to swallow. I spent those days trying to process everything. It was like I was in a fog, caught between rage, heartbreak, and a strange sense of numbness. Every time I thought about Lisa, that sneaky, manipulative side of her would come flooding back. She'd always been good at lying, at pretending everything was normal while she was secretly screwing around behind my back. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs. Was I blind? Was I just too damn trusting? The worst part was knowing she was lying right to my face, smiling, and acting like everything was fine when she was out cheating with Todd or whoever else she was seeing. I also couldn't get over how she'd act the victim every time I confronted her. It was always about how I was controlling, paranoid, insecure, just because I found out she'd been sneaking around. That was her way of turning everything around on me, making me feel like I was the crazy one. She loved gaslighting me, twisting things so I'd second-guess myself. But I wasn't stupid anymore. I saw her for what she was, a lying, cheating bitch who thought she could get away with anything. One night, I finally decided I needed to face her again, this time with a plan. I couldn't just keep letting her manipulate me. I wanted her to admit everything, to come clean if she even could. So I went back home, and I confronted her in the living room where everything had started. I told her I knew about Todd, about the other men I'd uncovered, and that I had enough of her lies. She looked furious, like I'd just ruined her little game. Her eyes flashed with anger, but I saw that flicker of fear too. She knew I was serious now. Her response was classic Lisa. She started crying, fake tears dripping down her cheeks, trying to make me feel guilty. "You don't understand, Mark," she sobbed. "It's not what it looks like. Todd is just a friend helping with the dining table. I swear I don't know why you're making such a big deal out of it." "Yeah, right. Helping with the dining table in my bathrobe in my house behind my back. That was the biggest lie she'd ever told. I wasn't buying it. I told her I didn't want to hear her lies anymore, that I knew what she'd been doing and that I was done with her bullshit. I told her she was a liar, a cheat, and a manipulator who thought she could string me along forever. Her face twisted in a mixture of anger and contempt. She spat back. "You're just jealous, Mark. You're jealous because I look better than your sorry ass. Maybe that's why you're so insecure." That was the straw that broke the camel's back. I'd never been so angry in my life. I told her she could keep lying, keep spinning her stories, but I wasn't going to be part of her game anymore. I was tired of feeling like I was going crazy, tired of feeling humiliated. I told her I was leaving, going to stay somewhere else for a while, clear my head, decide what I really wanted. She tried to guilt-trip me, saying I was throwing her away, that she loved me, that she'd change, but I knew better. A leopard doesn't change its spots, and I'd seen enough. That night I packed a bag and left. It wasn't easy. I felt defeated, betrayed, and furious all at once. I kept asking myself how I let things get this far, how I got so blind to the fact that she was cheating and lying. It hit me hard that our entire life, our marriage, had been a lie. I'd loved her, trusted her, and she'd been screwing around behind my back for who knows how long. The pain was sharp, but part of me also felt relief. I was finally waking up to the reality that I deserved better than this. I deserved someone who didn't play mind games, who wasn't a cheating bitch. Now I'm just trying to figure out what comes next. Do I try to fix this? Do I give her a second chance? Honestly, I don't know. All I know is that I can't keep living in this endless cycle of lies and betrayal. I've lost trust and I don't see how it's possible to rebuild it. The hardest part is knowing that I loved her once and now I hate what she's become. But I also realize that I'm worth more than this. I deserve honesty, loyalty, and respect. If she's willing to keep lying and cheating, then she's not the person I thought she was. And maybe, just maybe, I need to accept that it's time to walk away for good. The days after I left were the hardest. I kept circling back to everything. Her lies, the betrayal, how she thought she could manipulate me into staying. Honestly, I felt like I'd been hit by a truck. My stomach was constantly clenched, my mind racing. I kept wondering if I'd made the right decision, if maybe I was overreacting. But deep down, I knew I was. The trust was shattered beyond repair, and trying to patch it up would only be setting myself up for more pain. I started talking to some close friends, guys I trusted, about everything. They told me I was better off without her, that she was toxic, that I deserved someone who respected me. One of them, Dave, told me, "Man, if she's cheating on you and lying like that, she's not worth your time. You're young, you've got your whole life ahead of you. Don't settle for someone who doesn't value you." Hearing that, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe I wasn't doomed to be miserable forever. But even with their support, I couldn't shake the feeling of loss. I kept imagining what our future was supposed to be, our plans, our dreams, and realizing how much of it was just a lie. I'd built this life with her, and now it felt like I'd been living in a nightmare. I kept asking myself, how did I miss all the signs? Why didn't I see her for what she really was? The worst part was knowing she'd lied to me so effortlessly, so convincingly for so long. It made me question everything about our relationship, about the trust I thought we shared. One thing I couldn't help but dwell on was the moment I found her in my house, wearing my bathrobe, smiling like she owned the place. That image haunted me. I kept replaying it in my head, trying to figure out how she thought she could get away with it. Did she really think I'd never find out? Did she think I was stupid? Or was she just so narcissistic she believed she could manipulate her way out of everything? Honestly, I think she did. Because that's what narcissists do. They lie, cheat, and then act like the victim when caught. I also started noticing other things, small signs she'd been planning her escape for a while. She started acting more distant even before I caught her, hiding her phone, canceling plans with friends, brushing off my concerns. It was so obvious now that I looked back. She'd been plotting her escape, probably planning her affair for months, and I had been too blind to see it. I hated myself for that, but I also knew I couldn't change the past. I could only learn from it. In the meantime, I threw myself into work, trying to focus on anything but her. I kept telling myself I deserved better, that I was worth more than her lies and cheating. Still, every so often I'd catch myself thinking about her, wondering if she'd ever regret what she did. But then I'd remember the way she looked in that moment, smirking, confident that she'd gotten away with it. That's when I'd realize I'd dodged a bullet. I'd been lucky to get out when I did, before things got even worse. Now I'm at a crossroads. I know I need to move on, but part of me still feels torn. There's this voice in my head that says maybe she'd change, that maybe I should give her a second chance. But my gut tells me that once trust is broken like this, it's almost impossible to rebuild. That the scars she's left behind will stay with me forever. Still, I can't help but ask myself if I'm just afraid of being alone or if I really deserve better. Honestly, I think it's a mix of both. What I do know is that I won't tolerate being lied to anymore. I won't be played or manipulated. I've learned a hard lesson about trust, about how some people can hide their true selves behind a pretty mask for far too long. And I've realized I need to focus on myself, rebuild my confidence, and remember that I am worth someone who values honesty and loyalty. No more lies, no more betrayal. That's something I can promise myself now. Looking back, I realize the biggest lesson I've learned from all of this is about boundaries and self-respect. I was so caught up in trying to keep what we had, so determined to believe in the best of her, that I ignored the red flags. I thought love meant forgiving everything, turning a blind eye and hoping she'd eventually come around. But what I've come to see is that love isn't about sacrificing your dignity or ignoring your gut instincts. It's about mutual respect, honesty, and loyalty. Without those, all the love in the world doesn't mean a damn thing. Since leaving, I've made a conscious effort to rebuild myself. I've started therapy, which has helped me process the anger and betrayal and understand that I'm not to blame for her choices. I've realized that it's okay to feel broken for a while. Hell, I do some days. But I also know that I will come out of this stronger. I've been reconnecting with friends and family, reminding myself of who I am outside of that toxic relationship. And honestly, I've begun to feel a sense of liberation I never thought I'd have. The truth is, I don't hate Lisa. I don't even feel much anger anymore, just a deep, bitter disappointment. She was supposed to be my partner, my confidant, the person I trusted with everything. Instead, she turned out to be someone I couldn't recognize. That's a hard pill to swallow, but it's also a wake-up call. I'm grateful I caught her in time before more damage was done. And I know now that I deserve better than someone who lies and cheats and thinks she can get away with it. If there's anything I want to tell anyone reading this who might be going through something similar, it's this: trust your instincts. Don't ignore the signs just because you love someone. And if you find out they've been lying and cheating, don't be afraid to walk away. It's going to hurt. It's going to be painful and messy. But in the end, you'll realize that your happiness and self-respect are worth more than any toxic relationship. I'm still healing, still figuring out how to move forward. But I know one thing: this experience has changed me. It's made me more cautious, more aware, and more determined to find someone who truly values me. Someone who doesn't lie or cheat behind my back. Someone who respects me enough to be honest, even when it's hard. And I'll never settle for less again. Life goes on. And I'm finally starting to believe that I'll be okay, that I'll find happiness, even after all this pain. Because no matter how much she betrayed me, I'm still here. I'm still standing. And I'm finally ready to rebuild a life based on truth, respect, and self-love. That's what I've learned through all of this. Sometimes, losing someone is the only way to really find yourself.